Hello there, I'm Jim Stoten. I'm an illustrator, artist and musician. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for watching this film. What is this film? What is this film about? Excellent question. Well, this film is about creativity. More specifically, it's about my creative process. And in particular, I'm going to be talking about my sketchbook, because everything that I do starts in here. Whether I'm working on a job for a client as an illustrator, or making a painting for a show, or an album that I've recorded, or if I'm working on a personal project, like just something that I want to make, or a book I want to make, or an animation. Everything starts in my sketchbook. I've had a sketchbook for the last 15 years or so. And since I started using a sketchbook, it's become something that I do every day without thinking about what I'm doing, which means that I barely understand what I do in my sketchbook myself. So this is going to be an interesting challenge, to think about why I do, what I do, and how. I've never really thought about it before. So, let's have a look at the sketchbook. I collect stuff in my sketchbook, and I doodle in my sketchbook. I draw while I'm watching a film or listening to a debate or a TV show or a talk show or something, and I go into a state that allows things to come out almost as icons of my own thoughts and interests. Things like animals, patterns, shapes, words. And while I'm doing this loose thinking, drawing thing, I'm also arranging things on the page. Some pages in my sketchbook can be done over 3, 4, 5 different sittings, which means that although the content of what I'm drawing, which is totally dependent on what I'm thinking or what I'm watching or listening to, is changing, I can tie it all together into one seemingly designed image. I like experimenting in my sketchbook. Sometimes I'll treat a page in my sketchbook as if it's a poster of some kind about my own thinking. Now, as a result of drifting off and carefully building pleasing pages, I can often feel like I'm caught up in the stressful and pointless process of curating some sort of weird art book that only I will ever see. So I've developed a few little systems to avoid doing this. Occasionally, I put the sketchbook away when I feel like it's getting too pressurized, and I'll make myself a mini magazine out of cheap newsprint, and then I'll challenge myself to fill the whole thing in one day without thinking at all about what this thing is, or what it's going to look like in the end, or who's going to see it, or what someone might think when they look at it. Thinking this way is very freeing, and so every now and then I'll make one of these books to break the pressures of my own creative thinking. Now at this point I just want to say, I know that this is all sounding rather pretentious. It's not rocket science, it's drawings in a book. But it's really difficult to talk about this thing, what goes in here, without going deep into my own brain.
let's crack on.
A lot of what goes into my sketchbook is bits of things that are around me in my studio, because my studio is covered in start points for drawings. It's a collage in itself, the studio. It's a big mix of images and postcards and toys and just stuff that I like looking at. And sometimes, if I'm at the end of a project, or if I'm bored, or if I'm just stuck, I'll sit down with my sketchbook and I'll look around my studio and I'll start by drawing something that's on the wall. It's a lot like meditating. It's a way to drift off for a little while at the same time as solving a very small problem, like when ink from the page before bleeds through the paper and ruins the next page. When this happens, I like to use those shapes and colours as a backdrop for something new. And from that point on, the work on that page becomes an exercise in turning a problem into an opportunity. The images that come out of this way of working are pieces of work that could never have been planned beforehand, which means that the process of building these pages is relaxing and challenging at the same time. When people look through my sketchbook, they often ask me what the images mean, which I always find really interesting, because I think from an outside perspective, these images look like they must mean something. And to me, they do. In this way, my sketchbook work is a bit like a code or a language that only I understand. And in the past, I have questioned what the point of creating a visual language that only I really understand is. But then, if you hear a bird singing, you can't decipher words and phrases. You don't know if it's saying something specifically to you or another bird, or if it's even saying anything at all. It's just a nice sound that you hear, and so you listen to it. And I wonder if my sketchbook is a little bit like that, but in picture form. Who knows? I used to question what the point of my sketchbook was, because, in all honesty, it just felt like an enjoyable way to waste time. But I've realised that even if that's true, it doesn't mean that it's a pointless activity. The truth is, I don't really know what my sketchbook is, or why I use it. I just know I enjoy it. And I hope you've enjoyed looking at it. That's good enough for me.